Hari Om.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om, everybody.
Hari Om, sir. Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om ji.
Hari Om.
Okay. So, Prabhat, let's start. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we were in the middle of studying about the two faddish practices, one being yoga and the other meditation. So we had finished our discussion on yoga, a short quick discussion, and we're about to start on meditation. So are there any questions?
I have a very small question, technical question. The difference between
Anji, sir.
religious involvement and evolvement. What is the difference between the two? One is involvement. One is evolvement. Evolution, the bird which has come from evolution.
So we'll study about it in the next section actually.
Which is coming.
On the impediments of the spiritual journey.
Okay. Then it's okay.
No. I'll give you a quick snippet of that also. So it's interesting you ask this question because it's coming, and there he talks about one of the impediments on the spiritual journey is spiritual involvement. People are more interested in being involved in religion than evolving in religion. Being involved in spirituality or than evolving in spirituality.
अब वही मेरा कहने का मतलब है कि हम इन्वॉल्व तो इतना ज्यादा हो जाते हैं, पहुंचते भी नहीं है. यही मतलब है क्या?
I think involving is outside and evolving is inside.
So involving is yes, you can say that involving is external, evolving is internal. On the other hand, it's also about but if you keep it to that, then you'll say okay, then I don't have to get involved in anything. Then I won't participate in anything. Then I won't be part of any organization. Then the understanding then becomes abstention. मतलब ये गलत है. So it's also not right to conclude that evolution doesn't mean lack of involvement. Okay, these are not opposites. It doesn't mean that if you're involved you can't be evolved or you can't evolve. It matters on the intent. When your focus is only in involvement, you are finding a place for yourself in a religious structure, in a practice, in an organization. It becomes like anything. You're finding a position for yourself. It's not so much about evolution, but that ego comes in there also. The I comes in there also. Evolution is losing yourself. erasing yourself. It's the erasure of the I. So spiritual involvement is
Sharnagati, is it a Sharnagati or what?
Sharnagat. So it's a total sense of surrender. It's everything we've talked about,
Okay.
right? Spiritual evolution is the transformation of your intention from selfish to unselfish. Spiritual evolution is the transformation of your emotion from personal to impersonal, from a sense of a limitation of mindness to a all-encompassing identification. Spiritual evolution is your intellect's preoccupation with mundane matters to its awareness of the mystery of life. This is all that evolution is. In fact, this is what evolution is. Evolution is not how many hours of sleep you're surviving on at night. Those are incidentally great things. The more sattvic you become, the more evolved you become, um, you're able to do incredible things with this body of yours. You're able to function non-stop. You're able to eat very little. You're able to fast. All these things are uh, certainly great feats, but they per se are not evolution. So he's going to talk about that involvement versus evolution. Attachment on the spiritual journey itself is one of the biggest impediments to your progress. Okay, so we were talking about yoga and meditation. The gross can never control the subtle. That is what he mentioned at the end of the last class. Yoga is a gross practice. It's a practice. When I say yoga, I mean hatha yoga. Hatha yoga, pranayam, breathing techniques. These are gross practices which go a long way in fine tuning the way in which your body is not only taken care of but attuned to the cycles of nature. The way in which your breathing is aligned with, sort of to ensure well-being. No doubt about that. They are incredible practices which have evolved over thousands of years, and which certainly play a very positive role in your spiritual journey. No doubt about it. They are very conducive for your progress. See, we start this class with bhajans, right? 5-10 minutes of bhajans, just to bring your mind to um, a place of connection, just to bring your mind to a place of calmness and connection. We could have also done maybe 5-7 minutes of pranayama if we had the luxury of time. No doubt, these practices. Now, I'm not going to ask you to take out your yoga mats and do yoga also, right? But these practices certainly help subtleize your state of being. No doubt about it. But they don't change your intent. They don't change your mind. See, they have a positive influence. They are a good precursor and a good supporting practice. But the gross cannot control the subtle. Through yoga asanas, you cannot do the work that is meant for karma bhakti jnana. We just want you to appreciate that. Your emotions, your intentions, your ideas, your beliefs are subtle. These practices are gross. The gross cannot control the subtle. The subtle controls the gross. When you become, see, we face this similar thing when we talk about, say, there's a belief that sattvic food will make you sattvic. In a way, it's actually an uncorroborated belief because non-sattvic people don't take to sattvic food. It's not so much sattvic food that will make you sattvic, but sattvic people who are drawn to sattvic food. Sattvic food will not make you sattvic, but sattvic people will be drawn to sattvic food. You see the logical difference between the two statements. The gross cannot control the subtle. Sattvic food, which is gross, cannot turn into a sattvic person with sattvic intentions, with sattvic emotions. No matter how much sattvic food and clean, pure, farm to table you feed a person with bad intent, his intentions will not change. What will change his intentions, their worldview, their perspectives, their outlook will be the knowledge they receive. So, yogasanas have their place on your spiritual journey. It helps maintain a strong, healthy, sturdy physical body. Physical extends to perhaps the pranas, but beyond that, it doesn't. And there's no voodoo out here. There's no voodoo out here. Try to give the different spiritual disciplines their appropriate administration, right? That's the idea. So, on the other hand, just because someone can hold their breath for minutes, or someone can do some incredible yoga postures, if that was true, then Los Angeles would be the most spiritual place in the world. And from someone who has lived there, let me tell you, it's not, it's far from it. Not in a bad, I'm not criticizing it. So, yogasanas, the gross can never control the subtle. The gross certainly supports the subtle, but doesn't control it. Now, the second fad sweeping the human race is meditation. We've talked about yogasanas. Now, let's talk a little bit about meditation.
The second fad, your inner personality. The gross can never control the subtle. It is the law. The second fad sweeping the human race is meditation. Meditation has become the bestseller in the world today. Self-appointed religious heads are hawking meditation as like Swiss watches and Japanese cars. It has turned into a multi-million-dollar business. The innocent masses do not know what they are buying. They are swept away by publicity campaign, unaware of the adverse results that the meditation can bring about to ill-prepared minds clustered with desires. Meditation is specialized training carefully administered to advanced spiritual practitioners. Yet, millions flock to meditation halls without a clue of what it is and the consequence it leads them to. A simple reason for its mass appeal is the initial solace it gives to a novice. It is usually people suffering from stress and strain that take to meditation. A mind with considerable mental agitation is suddenly brought to the thought of divinity. The mind experiences a certain solace, a temporary feeling of peace, which is comforting. As a result, one is led to believe that meditation can directly bring about peace and bliss. Therefore, the practitioner plunges into it more seriously and finds himself losing his mental equilibrium. He gradually becomes more agitated, frustrated in life. Few realize where the mistake lies. Some believe that they are not putting in adequate effort. They even try harder and cause themselves greater harm. The instant effect of peace caused by meditation can be explained from a common phenomena experienced by people. A metropolitan businessman is generally infested with worry and anxiety. His mind is agitated with no peace and harmony. He spends sleepless nights in his luxurious mansion. On one rare occasion, he joins his family for a picnic to the woods. The wife is organizing a meal. The children are chasing butterflies. The man rests his head on the protruding root of a tree and falls off to sleep. The very same man who could not sleep on the cushioned mattress in his air-conditioned bedroom. The reason for this phenomena is that the environment lends a temporary charm to the disturbed mind. But the effect of the environmental peace does not last long. If, however, he repeats his visits to the same place, he will lose the temporary influence. He will sleep no more. On the contrary, his mind becomes more agitated, frustrated without the luxury of his home. The effect of meditation on a beginner is just the same. A mind congested with thoughts and desires, worries and anxieties is drawn to one line of thought. It is removed from the congestion of thoughts for those moments. It experiences a temporary peace. This practice thus lends the charm to an agitated mind. That feeling is lost with repeated attempts at meditation. Some understand its futility and drop the practice. But the ignoramuses are led to believe that the instant relief is a permanent transformation of their personality. They pursue doggedly only to be disappointed and frustrated in their lives.
See, we all experience this. You want to have see, where does the conviction in this idea come from in folks like us? Is when you live in an ashram. Everybody who comes to visit the ashram, first couple of days, it feels like a heaven on earth. Firstly, they'll be very suspicious. Why is this person there? Something wrong with them? Something happened in their lives? And then you come and visit, and then you're like, oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't know what a beautiful place this is. What a beautiful heaven. Come here and everyone will become a saint. So people who come for short retreats to the ashram, they think it's heaven on earth. The environment lends a temporary charm. Spend a couple of weeks in the ashram and your true colors will come out. Even in a pure place with pure intent. When I say pure, I say pure intent. Even a place like with pure intent, your true colors come out. You're fighting about silly things. Who should be taking responsibility to cut vegetables versus do provisions? Even in a place like the ashram, people form groups and alliances and likes and dislikes. It's absurd. But it only proves the point. And there's nothing wrong about it. In fact, if you want to run an ashram, if you have this delusion in your head, I want to start an ashram, be prepared for this. This will happen. And one group will try to be closer to the Swami. The other group will be fighting for more proximity. All the politics and all the drama you see in the world, it's there in its own cocoon. This only proves the point that the environment lends a temporary charm. It doesn't bring about a permanent transformation. Now, how you use the environment and how you use all these other supporting things to bring about a more permanent transformation is what we are interested in. We're not interested in selling a 5-day course, right? We're not interested in selling a quick fix. We're not interested in selling a, no doubt. I mean, I'm not taking it away. A couple of days in the woods, in the beauty of the woods, and that silence and that silent communion with nature, it's a beautiful experience. You should start every class with a little bit of meditation, and you'll feel, oh, I look forward to Monday mornings because it brings me 10 minutes of peace. We can do that also, right? And does it help? Absolutely, it helps. No doubt about it. Why? Because it helps for those 10 minutes and perhaps 30 minutes beyond that. But it's not a permanent transformation. And that's not the bottom line. So that's all the author is wanting you to appreciate. The gross does not control the subtle. True subtle change is brought about through positive religion, which we talked about in the previous section. Gradual, consistent practice of the spiritual disciplines, karma bhakti jnana, and not through momentary, sporadic, hyper interest in these faddish practices. These practices have their place on the spiritual journey, right? But without the essential disciplines, they are superficial, very, very superficial. And he concludes his thought.
Thus, the general trend everywhere is to abuse religion rather than use it for the redemption of humanity. The unauthentic, superstitious practices in the name of religion have taken root because of the temporary solace they produce. People seem content with the ephemeral effects of religion. They do not realize, with the effect wearing away, the whole nature of stress and strain returns. This resembles a strange phenomena which occurs in the Himalayan ranges year after year. In winter, when it's biting cold, snakes become cold-stricken. A snake lies coiled as if lifeless. For all purposes, it appears dead. People handle it as a rope. The same snake with a little warmth stretches itself. It regains its nature. Similarly, the wrong ways of religion may subdue the desires and ego for a while. But the moment the environment situation turns conducive, the self-same desires and ego rise again to the surface. Hence, the true spiritual way of life is to exterminate the desires, not just subdue them. And extermination of desires alone unveils the Supreme Self.
So, this is not only true for 5 days in ashram. This is true for 3 years in an ashram also. The effects of 3 years in an ashram will also wear off within 6 months. Speaking from experience. And that's when the true test starts. That in those 3.5 years, were you able to actually bring about some deeper, more permanent change? Because that's the intent, to make spiritual seekers self-sufficient in their journey, so that they become an ashram. They create an environment for others. They become a refuge for others. So no sooner than the effects of the environment fade away, then the same desires and ego rise again to the surface. That's what we're interested in. That's the snake you have to recognize. You have to acknowledge. And that snake comes up when the positive influence of an environment, a conducive environment fades away, when perhaps one is faced with adverse circumstances, when one is challenged, when one's ego is challenged, when one's finances are challenged, when one's emotions are challenged. Have you managed to subdue the dragon within? Not just subdue, but exterminate it. That requires a lot of patient practice. It requires a lot of falling down and picking yourself up again. It requires a lot of revision of your own knowledge, your own understanding. But you'll see small changes in yourself over a period of time. And that's the beauty. That's the fun of the small changes that occur in you over a period of time. That's the pleasure in the game that you have to enjoy. So here we're not interested in having quick fixes. Here we're not interested in having to give you an idea that suddenly everything will be hunky-dory, and once you read this book you'll be enlightened. No, it doesn't work that way. Change is slow. Shanai shanai. Slowly, gradually, we will bring about lasting change in our personalities. That should be your intent as well. When that becomes your intent, then you'll appreciate the power of your own desires. Desires are very powerful. See, this is the whole bedrock of the philosophy. You are an accumulation of your past. This is the bedrock of the philosophy. What you are today, you are nothing but a bundle of desires. You think just by going away to some other place for 5 days, by doing one ritual for an hour, the impression of the past will erase itself. It's a deep imprint which has to be slowly filled, slowly removed. But it's a fun journey. If you develop this humility, it's a wonderful journey. It's a very rewarding journey as well. So as you get on this journey, now we will discuss what could be the impediments on this spiritual journey. Right? So what are the various impediments that come up? Now that we have an idea of what is the correct journey, what is positive religion, let us talk a little bit about what are the impediments we would face on this path.
Impediments in the spiritual path. The true spiritual path is a scientific, methodic process for human redemption. Human beings are steeped in spiritual ignorance. Everywhere people grope in darkness to find peace and happiness in the world. What they need is the light of consciousness that shines within every living soul. The knowledge of the divine self. The process of redemption is clear and simple. Analyze the nature of your inner personality. Assess your spiritual need. Treat it with the compatible spiritual courses. Practice them diligently, consistently, until you gain that supreme knowledge.
Bas, that's it. 6 steps. Analyze the nature, assess the need, treat it with the appropriate courses, practice it diligently, consistently. Ultimately, you'll reach there. 5 steps. It's not so simple, but articulating it simply is very important. Please understand that. In fact, your understanding of the process is only brought about by how simply you can articulate it. We don't want to make this a complex, mystical voodoo that is beyond your control. Yes, it is a beautiful, mystical process, no doubt about it. But it's important to understand its stages. And these are the 5 stages. It starts with, when we take this approach, then the results are guaranteed. That's what he's saying. If you take this approach and ensure that you don't fall for the impediments, then your success in this process is guaranteed. But few approach spirituality, few approach religion through this scientific process, through this methodic process. There is no analysis of the nature of the inner personality. What do we think? Oh, there is some special thing that works for everyone. Go to this temple and do this puja. One size fits all. See, when you look at it that way, you'll realize how starkly similar our approach to religion is to everything else. It's like we go to the religious market just like we go to the vegetable market, just like we go to the mall, with a sense of instant gratification, with a sense of procuring it rather than growing with it. So first and foremost, as we studied in section 2 of this very book, the spiritual process starts with self-analysis. It starts with an understanding of your own nature, of where you stand. Based on that, assessing what are the spiritual courses that are appropriate for you and in what measure. Practicing it diligently, practicing it consistently, practicing it without the a sense of hurriedness, because growth is gradual, growth is slow. Developing that shraddha, that sense of surrender to the process. And that is what will ensure the unfoldment of the spiritual process.
However, while pursuing the course of spirituality, you must carefully overcome 2 main impediments that confront you. The first is at the mundane level, which is common to all, while the second is encountered by those who take up the spiritual practices seriously. The common factor in both impediments is the human weakness of becoming attached to the objects of experience. The mind craves for sensual pleasures, emotional feelings, and intellectual concepts. It gets you involved in and attached to the mundane affairs. As a result of your attachment to the world, you lose sight of the spiritual goal. This impedes your progress in the spiritual path. The second impediment you face is your attachment to spiritual courses. Your involvement in bhakti, devotion, jnanam, knowledge, and karma, action. The courses themselves turn out to be most entertaining. They provide you with much greater peace and joy than that provided by your mundane activities. Your mind develops a fascination for the courses themselves and begins to revel in them. Gradually, you become involved and attached to the practices. It is far more difficult to pull yourself out of the spiritual involvement than from mundane involvement. Hence, you continue to merely indulge in their enjoyment. You lose the very purpose of the spiritual path you have undertaken. With no thought of spiritual unfoldment, that becomes a greater obstacle in the spiritual path. Since the entertainment derived from spiritual practices is far superior to that of the mundane activities, you become more bound to them. The attachment to the spiritual revelry is more binding than the attachment to worldly pleasure and joy. That explains why the attachment to spiritual courses turns out to be a greater obstacle in the path. You become more deeply rooted in ignorance. You grope in denser darkness. The Ishavasya Upanishad in verse 9 cautions humanity of this imminent failing in the spiritual path. Those who are involved and attached to the material world grope in blinding darkness, ignorance, while those who are attached to spiritual courses are lost in greater darkness, ignorance. You must
Andham tama pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau vidyayagu rataha. The actual verse from the Ishavasya Upanishad. It's a beautiful text. Those who are involved and attached to material world grope in blinding darkness. We all know that. In fact, we perhaps preach that more convincingly than spiritual teachers. We've heard it so many times. But those who are attached to spiritual courses are lost in greater darkness. So this is the insight of the scripture, how self-aware the teachers were themselves in guiding the students, because the nature of the human mind is to grow attached to anything. Anything it encounters, the nature of the mind is to grow attached to it. And by attached, what happens? It means you lose your sense of objectivity. You grow completely dependent on it. You grow averse to change. You grow averse to further transformation. It's like a comfort. A comfort settles in. It's nothing but a strong, extremely strong like or dislike. It's a strong attachment and aversion to certain things and against certain things. So the nature of the human mind is wherever it goes, it tends to get attached. Even the spiritual path. You get attached to a particular guru, you get attached to a particular school of thought, you get attached to a particular way of preaching, you get attached to a particular philosophy. Isn't it? That's why most of the wars are fought in the name of religion, because of attachment to religion. So this is the impediment that the world has truly fallen for, and it brings a bad name to religion, which is why half the people don't want to. Not only are we not teaching the process of religion in the appropriate way, but the examples we have are all the bad examples of fundamentalism, of gross attachment, and even beyond fundamentalism, on a deeper level, for a true seeker, there is the need to maintain a sense of objectivity, to understand that the spiritual process is not the destination. A lot of name, fame, power, affection will come to you as you embark on the spiritual journey. A lot of money will come to you as you embark on the spiritual journey. A lot of influence will come to you when you embark on the spiritual journey. The idea is not to shun it, but how do you not lose your sense of objectivity when it comes? How do you keep moving? How do you not fall in love with the spiritual practices themselves? Attachment to knowledge. It's hard to explain, because it's like, you and me, we are middle school people trying to talk about a PhD level subject. it's rather difficult to conceive one who is spiritually advanced and talk about, oh, what they could be attached to. When we get there, we'll perhaps understand what the masters are trying to tell us out here. That even at that stage, there could be a deep attachment. Keep your objectivity, maintain your objectivity. Understand it's the this is not the destination. The destination is beyond. The first impediment we are all familiar with. The first impediment is attachment to mundane objects. The common theme between both impediments is attachment. That's what I want you to appreciate. The common theme in both is attachment. So actually it is one impediment is attachment. One is attachment to mundane, the other is attachment to the spiritual itself. The mind craves for sensual pleasures, emotional feelings, intellectual concepts, gets you involved in and attached to mundane affairs. As a result of your attachment to the world, you lose sight of the spiritual goal. This is a non-starter. This is most people. Non-starters on the spiritual path. Why? Because we're completely involved and engrossed in what we're doing. I'll think about this later. I don't have time. You're doing which is great. It's I think I've now lived half my life, almost half my life, 17 and 16, 17 versus 16. It's almost half my life familiar with these ideas. So it's difficult to think of not being familiar with them. A large set of people don't even have the thought of spiritual progress. If at all, they look at this as a balm for when crisis strikes. That's it. There's no spiritual goal. So we'll talk about the second impediment when we evolve. First of all, we have to overcome the first impediment. Do you have a spiritual goal? He's saying as a result of your attachment, you lose sight of the spiritual goal. I'm saying, do you have a spiritual goal? Articulate that first. Pick up a goal, only then will you face an impediment to the goal. Na? If there's no goal, no impediment also. So these words, these concepts become clearer when you're actually on the journey. Attachment to money. You may have spent years and years studying in an ashram. Attachment to money will still come. Attachment to sensual pleasures will still come. Attachment to emotions will still come. The problem is now these things are getting live streamed. I can't say everything I want to say. So it rarely happens. It's usually I'm the one who is traveling, and my wife and dogs and everyone out here in the home. So this occasion is my wife who's traveling. Yesterday I told her, I was like, I don't know how you live in the house without me. Because it's very hard to live in the house without you. Emotional attachment. It's only when you have a spiritual goal. Otherwise, you think, oh no, this is the normal, it should be there. So, so when you set up a spiritual goal, when you embark on it, then you'll see all these influences, you'll see all the possible impediments, and then you'll attune yourself to make the right corrections, self corrections, realignments.
You broke up in the middle. What did you say before? This is normal?
I said that if you don't have a spiritual goal, you'll dismiss this as, oh, this is normal.
The attachment.
Attachment is normal, right? I still remember this iconic moment. My mother was visiting the ashram, and after a long lecture on attachment, 1 hour, everyone is like, knows attachment A to Z. With my mother being my mother, she asked Swamiji, but Swamiji, little bit attachment is a good thing, no? See, we're not here demonizing it. The idea of attachment is not, suddenly pretending that you're not attached. Acknowledging the tendency of your own mind is very important. It's very much part of the process. It's not about justifying it or rejecting it. It's about acknowledging
The
it.
line is disturbed.
Sorry? Oh, the line is disturbed. Hmm.
You are frozen. Actually, we never knew the difference between an attachment and love before these classes, to be very honest. We always thought attachment to होना ही चाहिए.
Am I clearer now?
Very clear.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know where you lost me, but it's hard to repeat because. But essentially, what we were talking about is that awareness of one's attachment is very important. And that awareness comes only when you have a spiritual goal, when you have, a pulse of where you want to go and what are the influences on your personality currently. We'll talk about the second impediment when we get there. It's a good thing to keep at the back of your head. It's an important thing to keep at the back of your head. But as we evolve, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it. Let us first tackle the first impediment itself.
So, attachment and dependence. What does it go along?
The two sides of the same coin. Detachment is independence. Detachment is not separation. Detachment is independence. Attachment is dependence. Dependence is attachment. That's why I gave the example. It's about my wife. So, and what you have to appreciate is the nature of the human mind is that wherever it goes, whatever it does, whoever
So
it
your voice
meets,
is breaking.
whatever it gets,
Surprisingly, I can hear him very
No,
clearly.
it's not
There's
breaking
something
on my
wrong with
side
No,
either.
no,
your.
not breaking, not breaking.
what to do?
Hey, we could hear you.
No, no, everything is clear.
Yeah.
Okay, then the issue lies at your end, Yashwaji. I think the issue lies at your end.
Utsav, please correct me if I say something.
Um,
Yeah, what I have understood is that what Guruji is saying that हमारी चादर जो है वो मैली है और अगर हमको ये रियलाइज हो जाए कि वो मैली है तो इसको धोना है तो spiritual journey is only to wash all our dirt from the chadar and make it more clean and then live a happy life and all that. Am I right or wrong?
yeah, it's and in fact, you will also be familiar with मैली चादर ओढ़ के द्वार तुम्हारे कैसे आऊं.
Maybe like that, yeah.
Go to meet someone, particularly someone you respect, you'll bathe and go. You'll clean yourself and go. So same is with the Lord. Idea is you clean yourself and then you'll go to the Lord. So the human mind gets attached to whatever it contacts, and that's the impediment. That's the first and most important impediment on the spiritual journey. This attachment takes a more intense form on the spiritual journey as well, is what you should also acknowledge and remember, right? So the impediment is the same, the intensity is different. The impediment on the mundane world is a non-starter, is something that pulls you away from the spiritual path, and the attachment on the spiritual journey is a limitation. It's a limiter. It prevents you from growing further. So you must keep these in mind as you evolve, as you grow.
Overcome these main obstacles in your spiritual path. Get over your attachment to gaining objectivity in life. You gain objectivity by strengthening your intellect through daily study of Vedantic knowledge. Reflect upon the truths therein. Use that knowledge to maintain objectivity in your material as well as spiritual life. You then rise above all attachment and involvement. Remember, you take to the spiritual course for your evolvement, not your involvement. Never lose sight of the goal of enlightenment through your life. The spiritual courses are undertaken to unfold the divinity within you. They pertain to the terrestrial realm. They can reach you only to the point of terrestrial perfection, but cannot take you directly to the transcendental reality. The reality lies beyond. You'll have to ultimately go beyond all terrestrial effort and cross over to the transcendental. A phenomena strikingly similar to an athletic event known as the pole vault. In this event, the pole vaulter uses a pole to gain the height required to cross over a bar set for the purpose. The athlete runs with the pole, picks one end of it on the ground, and heaves himself up with the other end to the height of the bar, discards the pole and rolls over to the other side. No pole vaulter can jump that height without the pole. Equally so, no pole vaulter can jump that height with the pole. If he clings on to the pole after reaching the height, he will dislodge the bar. Only by discarding the pole at that height can he cross over to the other side. In the same manner, you cannot gain enlightenment without the aid of the spiritual courses. Ironically, if you are attached to the courses, cling on to them, you cannot gain it either. The spiritual courses can lift you to the zenith of terrestrial perfection. Thereafter, you must leave them and plunge into the silence of meditation. Then alone would you be able to cross over to the transcendental, attain spiritual enlightenment.
So back in the day when Swamiji used to do Jnana Yajnas, 5-6 day events in various cities. So if you were in the audience and if you were regular in the audience, any of you who have attended Swami Parthasarathi's Jnana Yajnas, you would say this and the audience would, like in a nightclub, if the DJ plays a song which you're familiar with, he'll pause the music and you'll hear the entire audience will be, all the people in the dance floor will be shouting or completing those words. Similarly, it's like a DJ and you would say this statement: no pole vaulter can jump the height without a pole. Equally so, the audience would complete it. No pole vaulter can jump the height with the pole. It's a beautiful example. I hope you're all familiar with what pole vaulting is. If you're not, you miss the best chance to understand what pole vaulting is. The Olympics and the Paralympics have just concluded. Once in a year, once in a couple of years, we see such events, whether it's the athletics or Olympics in particular. Olympics, of course, comes once in 4 years. We rarely see this. But for those who are not familiar, what is pole vaulting? An athlete will run with a huge pole, essentially a pole, like a big stick, and he'll dig it into the ground in a certain. And when he digs it, that pole will bend and it will cause him to rise up. So it's like coming to using a stick to rise to a certain height in above the ground. And they do that because they have to cross over. So there is a bar at a certain height. There's a bar which they have to cross over. If you cross over that bar successfully, your attempt is successful. If you hit the bar or you dislodge the bar on your crossing, that means you are not able to. Then you've not been successful. Now the pole is something that will help you rise to that height of the bar. But if you are sticking onto the pole, invariably that pole will only hit the bar. And the whole point of, God knows, I don't know why people are using a pole to rise to a height and all of that. Don't ask me why people do pole vaulting. But if you stick onto the pole, then it defeats the purpose of doing this pole vaulting. The idea is to use the pole and then discard it when it's necessary. The same with the spiritual journey. Use these processes to grow. Use these processes to evolve. But it's important to be aware that eventually you have to discard these as well. So he's conveying the second impediment. The second impediment is your attachment to the spiritual journey itself. First of all, develop a spiritual goal for yourself and get on to the journey. Understand the various forces of attachment which continue to plague you or continue to challenge your journey as you right. That is the first impediment. And the second, of course, as you grow, also be cautious that you don't get attached to the path itself. You don't get comfortable and complacent on the journey itself. understand that you have to cross over the bar. You have to jump over to the other side. So don't stop until you reach that state of meditation. You reach the seat of single pointed concentration. All of these practices, all of these ideas, all of these philosophies, all of these spiritual disciplines are to bring you to a state of quietness, are to bring you to a seat of meditation, to ultimately dissolve this world. With that thought, we'll conclude today. We'll conclude this chapter where he's talked about the abuse of religion and the proper use of religion. So I hope after this we're able to positively use religion as opposed to abusing it. Now, next class, we'll move on to the next chapter called the Law of Causation. So we all heard of karma. We've talked about it endlessly here and there in passing. Everybody seems to be an expert on karma, but what exactly is karma? So the law of causation, another word, another phrase for the law of karma, is what we will take up in the next class. So we'll see you again and start chapter 17. With that thought, we'll conclude today. Thank you so much for joining. And
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.